All right, everybody, welcome in. It is a beautiful Tuesday night. I hope that you're slowly but surely starting to recover from Sunday. Those of you who are 49ers fans, maybe there's some Chiefs fans, maybe there's some weird fans of other teams in here. It's been crazy to see all the other NFL fan bases try to gang up on the 49ers on social media. It's downright like pathological behavior. It's really funny right now. I'm just sitting here from like a neutral standpoint and I'm watching it. I don't think, and it's for the 49ers players too. I don't think that I've ever seen other teams delight as like other actual NFL players delight as much in a loss of another NFL team than players are delighting in the 49ers loss right now. Part of that probably is the fact that the 49ers did administer a lot of beatdowns this season. I mean, they dressed for the Philadelphia Eagles funeral by wearing all black, and then they scored six straight touchdown passes against the six straight touchdowns on six drives against the Eagles to put that season away for Philadelphia. They delivered the blueprint for Philadelphia to spiral out of control. So it wasn't good for the Eagles. It wasn't good for the Seahawks after they played the 49ers this year. So I think that, might be part of it. I think you have Philadelphia and Seattle fans and players from both of those teams. I think Philly for sure. There's a whole Jalen Carter thing going on right now with John Feliciano, but you definitely have a lot of carnage here in the aftermath of the 49ers losing the Super Bowl on social media. It's definitely not pretty out there. I'll tell you that much. I take a quick glance at it and I'm like, oh boy, more people beefing, more people talking, including there was a beef between two 49ers players immediately after the Super Bowl. We're going to call this the Spencer Burford, John Feliciano beef. It has been quashed, but why don't we take a quick look at it? This is courtesy Bleacher Report. They tweeted this graphic. So Burford and Feliciano, but Feliciano tweeted on Monday morning to a fan asking about whose fault the pressure at the end of overtime on the 49ers offensive line, whose fault it was on the offensive line on the 49ers final play or offensive play of the Super Bowl. And Feliciano said a quick chop is not needed if the guy that was supposed to block him blocks him. The context of this was that a lot of people were accusing Colton McKivitz, the right tackle, of allowing the pressure. But John Feliciano was trying to defend Colton McKivitz. In doing so, he didn't name Spencer Burford, but the only other possible person at fault here would have been Spencer Burford because it was the right. Jones came in between right tackle and right guard. So you're just wondering whose responsibility it was. It was going to be one of those two players. So Feliciano, in trying to defend Colton McKivitz, said that if the guy that was supposed to block him blocked Chris Jones, the 49ers would have obviously had a better shot to make a play. And Brandon Ayuk was wide open in the end zone. Brock Purdy just didn't have enough time to go to him. Spencer Burford opens up Twitter yesterday and sees John Feliciano essentially calling him out. Doesn't have to name him to call him out in this 50-50 situation. And Burford says, sheesh, I open up my app to this. Get well soon, bro. A few hours later, John Feliciano apologizes to Spencer Burford, says he's sorry he woke up hungover. In trying to have one's back, I hurt you. It's effed up, and I apologize. You got nothing but greatness ahead of you. I'm sorry, bro. Talked to Spencer Burford in the 49ers locker room today, and he said that Feliciano apologized to him. You saw an apology via social media there. I saw Feliciano leaving the facility today, but that was before the media headed into the locker room. So apparently that beef is quashed. That obviously was something that Spencer Burford was not happy with. I'm sure the 49ers weren't happy with it either. One of the big things is protect the team. They have that posted up in the locker room, and you don't want to go to social media and say that somebody missed an assignment if you're a player. There's enough of us analyzing film to figure that out. I think that Burford's intentions actually might have been okay to start the whole process. He wanted to defend Colton McKivitz, but again, it was a 50-50 proposition. It was either McKivitz's fault or it was Burford's fault. And if you're going to go out and publicly say it wasn't McKivitz's fault, then Well, then it had to be Burford's fault. I think the best way for this to get out would have been if Spencer Burford had initially tweeted saying, "Hey, it was my fault." If he had been the one to step in and defend Colton McKivitz, and in an ideal world, maybe John Feliciano tells him, "Hey, I see Colton getting roasted online. If we want to fix this, Spencer, maybe you should be the one that says something since you were the one that was in there, and it was actually your responsibility." But that's you can't expect players to be coordinating on social media like that. John Feliciano probably just should have laid off and everything would have been fine. So I think the whole subtext of that too is that Feliciano took Spencer Burford's starting job at right guard, but they were still platooning by season's end, right? Burford was in the game on the touchdown pass from Juwan Jennings to Christian McCaffrey on the trick play. Burford made a great block on that play that might have prevented an interception by the Kansas City Chiefs. So Burford was contributing, but Feliciano was starting. Feliciano's a veteran. He didn't come up through the 49ers culture. He was initially drafted by the Raiders, has been a bit of a journeyman. They signed him for this one season to be interior line depth. When they felt that Burford wasn't their best option at right guard, the 49ers went to Feliciano to at least start at right guard, and then they mixed both of them together. Feliciano got hurt. It looked like his elbow in the third quarter of the Super Bowl. And he said he was hungover, and he said he was frustrated. I mean, he'd been hurt the night before, and obviously emotions are running raw right after a Super Bowl loss, especially one like that. And he tweeted what he did when he saw the criticism of Colton McKivitz, and then it got to Spencer Burford, who obviously was hurt by that. But an apology has been issued. That beef seems to have been quashed. The other beefs online will probably continue because that's just the way that all of this works. When the 49ers lose, it seems that the rest of the NFL rejoices. But that's the latest that we have from there. Today, the 49ers cleaned out the locker room, and we can listen to some of Kyle Shanahan's comments. We can listen to some of Brandon Ayuk's comments, and I even have a little clip from George Kittle. But first, Brandon Ayuk, because he didn't give a ringing endorsement of a desire to stay with the 49ers today. He seemed cagey at best about it. Now, remember, he's under contract with the 49ers, so technically this decision is with the team, but he's entering that fifth-year option, and he obviously wants a new deal, a longer-term extension. And based on some of the stuff that we had seen on social media from those closest to Ayuk, and now based on what he said at availability today, when he didn't firmly say that he wants to be with the 49ers, he said only if the situation or the opportunity is right. He said that the right opportunity would be to win a championship, but he wasn't, bullish about saying, yeah, I want to be with the 49ers. I think we can expect, or at least brace ourselves for, some contract drama this offseason. We saw Deebo Samuel milk that situation for what it was worth a couple years ago, held out throughout the offseason. Obviously, Nick Bosa held out last year. Nick Bosa was very quiet in the media aspect of things, and the 49ers finally resolved that before the start of the regular season. I don't know how far this Brandon Ayuk situation is going to go. I do know the 49ers want to keep him around. I know that they have determined that he's an A-list player that they want to pay. And I also know that Brandon Ayuk wants, some of the politics of all of this, which involve, family members talking on social media, which obviously involve the money behind everything. I do know Brandon Ayuk really, really cares about this football team. And as evidence, I present this to you from today's locker room clean-out availability.
Brandon, what are you going to remember most about this particular roster this past season?
Guys that came in to work to be champions every single day.
Brandon, is this the hardest postseason loss you guys have experienced?
Got it. Thanks, Brandon. Thanks, BM.
That's, if you're somebody who reacts to human emotion and has empathy, and it's tough to watch. You could see in that clip how much Brandon Ayuk's teammates meant to him. I mean, he's probably tearing up under those sunglasses. At the very least, he was trembling, and it definitely was a carryover of what I felt in the locker room in Las Vegas. And I've talked a lot about my experience observing that locker room in Las Vegas fresh after the 49ers lost the Super Bowl. I mean, I work with these guys on a daily basis, right? I'm covering this football team, and I, you thank people after you're finished with the season working for them. You're building relationships in there, and I'll say I didn't talk to Brandon Ayuk right after the game on Sunday, but I talked about my interactions with Christian McCaffrey, with Brock Purdy, Trent Williams, Nick Bosa. Another player who I talked to was Spencer Burford, and there wasn't much talking in the locker room. It's mainly just a handshake, and you thank whoever you're with for your work with them during that season, your interaction covering them that season, and you move along. And I shake Spencer Burford's hand, and we just didn't let go for a while. And you could see the raw emotion and the meaning of what had just happened in his eyes. I mean, how seriously he took it. And yeah, there were a lot of failures from the 49ers in this game. There were also a hell of a lot of successes in the game. At the end of the day, what happened on Sunday was a 15-round prize fight. Two heavyweights going at it. Somebody had to lose. Both teams made mistakes. One team made the play at the very end to win it, and that was the Kansas City Chiefs. It was tremendously evenly matched. Somebody was going to feel completely gutted when the game ended, and it happened to be the 49ers. That's the beauty and the agony of professional sports rolled up into a moment that people will not soon forget. That was Super Bowl 58. So being in that locker room firsthand, and this is my job, is to kind of convey what the 49ers are feeling, what they're saying, what their mindset dealing with this is. I could tell you that being in that locker room was a visceral experience, because this was a monumental loss for the 49ers, but in many ways it's also a loss that the reaction from it is something that I think will be defining for the 49ers. How are they going to bounce back from this? What is the future going to be? I still see the text title underneath me is Brandon Ayuk's future. And a big hint into Brandon Ayuk's future is a look at the emotions with which he discusses the journey that just finished, and the teammates with which he took that journey. So there might be a lot of fluff in these contract negotiations, right? There was with Nick Bosa, there was with Deebo Samuel. And by fluff, I mean just stuff isn't resolved for quite a bit, for quite a while. You don't know how either party is truly feeling until pen is put to paper on a final contract. And the same might be true here in the Brandon Ayuk saga. I don't know. But remember the video that I just showed you throughout the next few months, or however long this might take. Remember how much this meant and means to Brandon Ayuk. Remember the bond that the 49ers have in this locker room. And I think that, sometimes a picture speaks 1,000 words. Sometimes a 1 minute, 2 second video can speak 1,000 words as well. Purdy and McCaffrey, to me, this was one of the enduring scenes of what happened in the locker room today. And in my head, it's going to be an enduring image when I think back to this 2023 season. You could see that Brock Purdy got a Pro Bowl helmet. Christian McCaffrey got one too, because he obviously was a Pro Bowler as well. Still can't believe that Christian McCaffrey was snubbed last season from the Pro Bowl. But this year, both of these guys were Pro Bowlers, and both of them were MVP finalists. 2 of the 5 MVP finalists in the National Football League are on the screen right now. Brock first went over to Nick Bosa and had Bosa sign his helmet. And then he went to Christian McCaffrey and had McCaffrey sign his helmet. So what a moment on locker room cleanout day. Purdy and McCaffrey, with Purdy, the MVP finalist quarterback, asking the MVP finalist running back for his autograph. There's humility there. There's friendship there. There's obviously a bond that started on the practice field when McCaffrey was first traded to the 49ers there. I mean, there's a whole lot of production in this photo as well. And I think that, this was the year that the tandem of Purdy and McCaffrey emerged into a superstar tandem in the NFL. And that is something that, the fact that he's getting his autograph, the fact that Christian McCaffrey is signing that helmet, I think it gives you serious last day at school vibes, right? You can see all the boxes packed up in the locker room behind them, the laundry hampers, the big laundry buckets. You could tell that this was the day that they're packing up to go home to recalibrate before the steep climb back in the off season. The 49ers have their franchise quarterback. That's for sure. And I think that, for the steep climb back, that's what you absolutely need. You can confidently expect to be in contention, and that's all you can do is be in contention. At some level, you're going to need luck, and I'm going to talk about the importance of luck here in a second. But at some level, you need to combine luck with talent to actually win a Super Bowl. The 49ers didn't have the necessary luck to do it this year. The Kansas City Chiefs did. But the talent half of the equation is obviously also very important. And the most important component of the talent half is the quarterback. And the 49ers have that in Brock Purdy. But we talk about the importance of luck. This right here is staggering to me. These are the top 10 most lucky teams from the playoffs since 2018. The way that you measure luck is you look at value that a team gains or loses by dropped interceptions by their opponents, dropped passes by their opponents, by field goals and extra points attempted by their opponents, and by fumble recoveries in a game. This is a number that to me is staggering. The 49ers and the Chiefs played on Sunday night, and there were a total of 7 fumbles in the game. Kansas City recovered 6 of them. And fumble recoveries, that they tend to be random, and they tend to be one of the biggest barometers of luck. Over the past 6 years, the most lucky team, based on all these, an aggregate of all these metrics, the most lucky postseason team has been this year's Kansas City Chiefs. A plus 76.4% luck index. The 49ers were the 12th unluckiest out of the 80 teams in the postseason since 2018. On top of that, the 2022 49ers, last season's 49ers, were even unluckier. The 49ers right here, looks like they were the 9th unluckiest team in the postseason. So the Chiefs this year were extremely lucky. The 49ers were very, very unlucky in the postseason for the second straight year. And that's just the way that life goes. Nobody is trying to take credit away from Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce or Trent McDuffie or Steve Spagnuolo. They all did what they needed to do to win the game. And conversely, nobody's trying to minimize some of the 49ers' mistakes in this game. They certainly made mistakes. They certainly weren't ready to combat some of Steve Spagnuolo's pressure. He got 9 unblocked pressures through blitzes in this football game. But despite all of that, the 49ers were right there. It looked like they were touching the trophy in this game. I mean, it went 75 minutes. It went to overtime. They're right there. And when you look at the data, this is objective data, you see that the Chiefs were very lucky and the 49ers weren't. That fumble number is crazy. 7 fumbles, 6 recovered by Kansas City. So it just illustrates that being the better team, playing better football, being more talented, that's not all that's necessary. It's also necessary to have an appropriate amount of luck. And the San Francisco 49ers, unfortunately for them, over the past 2 years, have not had it. I think that so much of the mood in the room today, as the 49ers packed up for the offseason, there obviously you saw the tears or the emotion from Brandon Ayuk. Wasn't sure if they're tears because he had the glasses on, but he was definitely overcome with emotion. So much of what was happening in that room today is a feeling and our feelings that the 49ers will strive to channel into fuel for the fire moving forward. And they've already shown that they can bounce back from really, really brutal, high-profile defeats to go on a run that could set them up with a chance to win the Super Bowl. They did it in 2021 following the 2019 Super Bowl and the 2020 misery campaign of the COVID season. They did it in 2022, coming off the 2021 brutal finish. They did it this season, coming off of the Brock Purdy injury in Philadelphia to close the 2022 season. I wrote a lot about this. It's going to come out on The Athletic in the morning, so you can go ahead and stay tuned for that. What makes this 49ers locker room tick? How do they bounce back from stuff like this? Because they did bounce back over the past couple of years from brutal finishes. This one is especially brutal, but why are they betting favorites right now in Las Vegas? I don't think people want Las Vegas mentioned for quite some time now after what happened there on Sunday. But why are the 49ers in position to at least be expected to be good this next year when so many other teams in the past have been derailed by just one Super Bowl loss or even one NFC title game loss? And I think so much of it is obviously the fact they built up a stockpile of talent, and that talent is mostly under contract for next season. All of the star power essentially is. And if you do consider Chase Young a star, Nick Bosa said the 49ers definitely are going to want him back. We'll see if that's possible, but they've got these guys coming back. But on top of that, they also have a mental makeup and a mental fortitude that I think is unusual in the NFL. And a lot of it, I bring up the history. I think a lot of it is based on what this team had accomplished as a franchise before this group, because Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have striven to emulate the past. They've decorated the hallways with stuff like this. And every single player on the 49ers passes this wall. It's about 15 feet long when they cross from the Levi Stadium service tunnel into the locker room. And you have to go through this hallway and buy this image as you head to the parking lot or to the practice field. So as guys were walking out today, and this article is going to come out tomorrow, and I'm going to get into it very deeply, they saw this. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. You have to remember that all of the legends that are on this wall went through devastating defeats. It wasn't just the Super Bowl for Steve Young, who was second from the left next to Dwight Clark, in between Dwight Clark and Roger Craig. It wasn't just the Super Bowl against the Chargers. First he had to go through the harrowing quarterback controversy with Joe Montana and being number 2 to Montana for so many years. And then he lost to the Cowboys twice, 2 straight NFC championship games, 1992 and 1993. Wasn't all great for Roger Craig, and that was before Steve Young won, so he had to overcome stuff to win. Wasn't all great for Roger Craig and the 49ers. I mean, they had some huge, disappointing losses in the postseason. 1986 to the New York Giants, 1987 to the Minnesota Vikings, before they were able to turn it around and win in that 1988 season against the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Montana went through so much adversity before he was able to turn it around and win more Super Bowls. Even before 81, there were some tough losses as the 49ers built in 1979 and 1980. Patrick Willis never won a Super Bowl. He's on here as well. And he went through some excruciating losses as he tried to win. And the 49ers did bounce back under Jim Harbaugh to make it back to the postseason after 2011, after 2012, but they can never quite cross the finish line. Then there's Ronnie Lott. Then there's Jerry Rice. Similar stories as some of the other greats of the 80s. Hell, Dwight Clark was one of the greats of the 80s. The 80s teams for the 49ers actually redeemed teams from the 1970s, 1970, 1971, and 1972 that all lost to the Cowboys in 3 consecutive years in the postseason. So the point is that in sports and in life, gratification is not always instant. Sometimes it takes years. If you want another example, Andy Reid, who's now won 2 Super Bowls against the 49ers here over the past 5 years, he didn't win a Super Bowl until his 21st year as a head coach in the NFL. A lot of people are comparing Kyle Shanahan to Andy Reid, but I think the comparison is a little bit silly because Kyle Shanahan just finished up only his 7th year in the NFL. So Kyle Shanahan has a third of the service time as a head coach that Andy Reid had when he won his first Super Bowl against the 49ers in 2019. Now, some of you may be cringing right now, and you're probably saying, oh, no, I don't want to wait that long. I can't wait 14 more years for the 49ers to finally win a Super Bowl. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying have some perspective. And I think that the best spot for perspective is right on the wall of the hallway in the 49ers locker room. This is a life lesson, and this might be something that can make 49ers fans feel a little bit better right now. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. And my article on The Athletic about the 49ers leaving the room, packing up their boxes, and seeing this on their way out, that's going to be coming tomorrow. You know that I always try to tie in historical lessons, and the 49ers are leaning heavily and will have to lean heavily on those moving forward. I wonder, the Chiefs, the new Cowboys for the 49ers, are they the team that San Francisco is going to have to overcome to finally reach immortality? That's what Steve Young had to do after the 92 and 93 season. They finally got over the hump in 94. Is that going to be Kansas City? Is Brock Purdy's rise going to continue? And is that rise going to have to encounter Patrick Mahomes again? Is it going to be like a Return of the Jedi kind of situation? As the Empire Strikes Back at first, see Brock Purdy get his hand chopped off by Darth Mahomes, and then you move forward to the Return of the Jedi, where Brock Purdy can come back and exact his, well, I guess a Jedi doesn't get vengeance, but win the next time that he faces Mahomes. Because Purdy, the 49ers expect Purdy's powers to only grow stronger. This right here is a 24-year-old quarterback who hasn't even had a fully healthy NFL offseason under his belt. He finally will get that chance this year. The elbow injury last year prevented that. Obviously, he was drafted the season before that. So Purdy and McCaffrey can now diligently work together for an entire offseason. And the fact that the rest of the 49ers core, or most of it's going to be back, that's going to be, I think, good pairing with both of these guys to allow the 49ers to potentially take things up to the next level. Let's listen to see and hear what George Kittle had to say about the 49ers talent next year.
Huge amount of the core is coming back.
I would say so. I mean, I feel like we have a lot of guys who are still on contract. Brock's on his rookie deal. I think we have a lot of guys who play football at a very high level. And so, yeah, I have Nick Bosa coming back, right? Yeah, I think we can win all football games.
Like Brock's a real guy. It's because when he does something, he always when he makes a mistake or he does something well, he always understands why. It never seems just fortunate. He processes it very well. The way he approaches practice and games is always the same. And so Brock anything that he struggled with this year when we watch cut-ups together, he needs time to correct it, but those are things he'll figure out that he struggled with because we'll be able to put it all on tape and show him, and he'll see it right away, and he'll get that done throughout OTAs and have a good by training camp. I mean, that's how he was last year mentally. Some of the things he would see that he struggled with during the year that we couldn't quite correct during the year because Wednesday, Thursday, Friday practices aren't really like that. It's hard to develop some of that muscle memory and things. You're just trying to get through the game plan and get ready for a new defense. But I remember last year when he saw some things and he would just be like, man, now I see it all together. Like, I'll be all right when I come back. And we didn't know because he was hurt, but by the time he got in training camp, he had it solved. You do it in your backyard. You figure it out. Like, it's got to click, though, and you got to see it and you got to feel it. And that's what was so cool with going through it with him last year.
Kyle Shanahan talking about the process, and I think there should be a lot of excitement regarding Brock Purdy and the fact that he's going to have a full offseason to prepare. A couple other notes of news today. Eric Armstead was playing with a torn meniscus that he suffered against Philadelphia. So he didn't think that he's going to be able to come back this season, but he was able to work countless hours behind the scenes to get his body ready to come back. And he fought through that injury, and now he's going to have to rehab some more over the course of the offseason. And Javon Hargrave played with a torn thumb ligament. So the 49ers defensive line, which I think showed a ton of heart in the playoffs, especially in the Super Bowl, right? We had a couple of those effort questions mainly with Chase Young in the NFC Championship game. Those were not there anymore in the Super Bowl. These guys played with their hair on fire. Chase Young, I thought, was fantastic. Nick Bosa said he definitely wants Chase Young back with the 49ers next year. We'll see if they can afford it over the course of this offseason. But when you look at that Super Bowl performance, I thought a lot of it was vintage 49ers pass rush. And the fact that Armstead and Hargrave were both playing hurt, to me, that was really, really telling. Also, talk about Steve Wilkes' future. Right now, Shanahan didn't give a ringing endorsement or a ringing statement implying that Steve Wilkes is going to be back next year. Somebody asked him about it, and he said he still has to watch the tape and how he's going to be discussing a bunch of stuff. And then somebody followed up on it, and Shanahan said he expects all the coaches to be back next year. I was there in the room, though, and it would have been easy for Shanahan to quash any speculation if he wanted to, and he didn't. So we wait to see what the 49ers are going to do on the front of the defense. I think right now it's not wise to say anything specific in either direction here. Just keep your eye out on what the 49ers might decide here in the next couple of weeks. I'll next talk to at least John Lynch at the end of this month in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. So that's the next availability for the 49ers. They're probably going to go dark until then. They need to go dark before then because this team is not done grieving yet, nor should they be done grieving yet. It's going to come in waves. The energy in the locker room today was still a rather depressing one. That is completely to be expected. You saw the Brandon Ayuk video that I played earlier. This is a football team that was punched in the gut. That's the only way it can go when you lose like this. You can't brace yourself for a loss like this because then you're going to lose the game for sure. You have to enter a game, as Fred Warner told us today, with full belief that you are going to win. And that's an issue if you don't win because you have to deal with the fallout. But the 49ers are confident they're going to be ready to go when the time to go comes. The thing is, the time to go is not here yet. So they're licking their wounds right now, and they're probably going to retreat from the public eye before the steep climb back. But I'm just here telling you what the mood in that locker room is. That's why I'm telling you about Spencer Burford, John Feliciano. That beef is quashed. Feliciano is no longer under contract past this season with the 49ers. Spencer Burford is. He was a draft pick from a couple years ago. And we'll see. I asked Kyle Shanahan today about the 49ers and their desire to try to improve pass protection. And maybe Mike can get that clip up for us. Mike, if you could find the Kyle Shanahan answer to my question about pass protection. Because I think that's, to me, was the most pronounced 49ers weakness of the Super Bowl. And I think that's one thing that might make the 49ers a little less reliant on luck. They obviously weren't lucky, and the Chiefs got really lucky. But if you want to make that margin for error where you don't need as much luck, a little bit bigger, I think pass protection is an investment in the offensive line. If the 49ers can find players that can immediately contribute and fit there, I think that's one thing that can help them the most. Why don't we take a look at what Trent Williams had to say in the locker room today? Trent, by the way, he still seemed very, very down and very affected negatively by this loss. One of the leaders of the 49ers team. This video is courtesy NBC Sports Bay Area.
Team to try it again next year?
No. I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, the feelings that shall pass, and once spring roll around, everybody gonna have that same hunger to get back and have a chance to try to win the Super Bowl.
Once spring rolls around, everybody's gonna have that same hunger back to try to go and win a Super Bowl. So the 49ers, again, they want to turn the disappointment into fuel. That is the key for San Francisco. That's what Trent Williams believes that they can do. Here's Kyle Shanahan on pass protection. This was off of my question to him.
You want to invest in wherever you think makes you the best team. You can sit there and load up on O-linemen and draft them 3 years in a row and go spend on free agents and not have any people score touchdowns and things like that or rush the quarterback. You can do a lot of that type of stuff. It just depends how it goes. But in that game, I didn't feel like we were struggling just blocking them. I think we missed a few blitz pickups, which that's what they do. I think that's why they're second in the league at that stuff. That doesn't always come down to a lineman. That comes down to kind of hot throws, things like that. And but no, you're going to always try to upgrade at everything. But that's when all these discussions that go into it, like trying to upgrade to just beat that team or anything like that. When you look at football and the way it works out and the amount of games that you play to get in the playoffs and just 2 or 3 playoff games to get to the Super Bowl without there being a series to play. Like, you think of what are your options? What team do you have? How can you get better through the draft? How can you get better through re-signing your own players? How can you get better through free agency? And what does that affect years to come? And you look at that every single year and you try to become the best team possible with the situation that you're in. You don't just say, hey, we're upgrading here this year. You got to make sure that's available. And if it's not, then you get stronger in a different area. There's lots of ways you can win. You just got to keep trying to find that way.
And that was Kyle Shanahan. I think a lot of people weren't too comfortable with his answer when that was off of my question, asking if he really wanted to upgrade the pass protection. And it wasn't a resounding yes. One caveat that I would add is that Kyle Shanahan has not watched the tape of the game on Sunday yet. Again, this is so raw right now to the 49ers. The pain of the agony of defeat is so raw that Nick Bosa said he's not going to watch the tape until next season. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan's job is going to be to watch it sooner because they've got to start determining who they want to target in free agency and who they want to target in the draft. So Shanahan's going to have to break down this film sooner. And I wonder if his answer is going to be more pronounced when I talk to him a little bit later about this in the offseason after he watches the tape, because there were 9 unblocked pressures in this game coming off of blitzes. Now, I get it. Physically, his players might not have been losing one-on-one, but a lot of this is a cerebral thing too. A lot of this is a feel thing too. Spencer Burford based his, one of the most damaging plays of the game. It wasn't that he was physically incapable of blocking Chris Jones. It was that he chose to block the wrong guy, right? He chose to go off to the linebacker who was blitzing behind Chris Jones instead of sliding over to Chris Jones and making the block that the 49ers needed on the play. So it wasn't a physical issue. Yeah, the 49ers were fine physically at times blocking the Chiefs, but it was a mental lapse. And so much of football is mental. You have to be able to execute your assignments at the moment of truth. And too many times in this game, the 49ers didn't. Now, there was the Trent McDuffie blitz on a previous third down toward the end of regulation where the 49ers had a chance to, I wouldn't say ice the game, but move much closer to doing that. Now, that was a great blitz, and it was disguised really well. McDuffie inside leverage against Brandon Ayuk. They thought he was going to be in pass coverage, but he bolts through and makes the big-time pressure that knocks away the throw from Brock Purdy to Juwan Jennings. Could the 49ers have done something differently there? Yes, Brock Purdy actually could have thrown a pass to his hot route, which was Brandon Ayuk, but he went to Jennings instead, and it's a play that he makes all the time in practice. It was the surprise of the pressure that got onto the 49ers so quickly that threw Brock Purdy off on that play. I think Brock Purdy still played an amazing game. He still played so well, especially considering all the circumstances. 24-year-old rookie, first Super Bowl, all this, all that. He played phenomenally well, but despite that, he had that one lapse. That one lapse happened because you have to credit the Kansas City Chiefs, Steve Spagnuolo, Trent McDuffie, for dialing up a blitz at exactly the right time. The biggest play of the game, the perfect blitz, perfect time. That's a bullet you can only fire once. Can't fire that bullet a second time. If you do a second time, the 49ers will pick it up. Purdy will have seen it. He'll have expected it. They saved it for the exact right time. They used it, and it got the 49ers on that 3rd and 4. So we can point at so many junctures of this game where something could have gone differently. The 49ers could have done something better. But you also have to remember they did several things phenomenally well. And you have to also remember that the Chiefs had good plays and they had bad plays. This was a 15-round prize fight where both teams were knocking the crap out of each other. It was a slobber knocker. It was a boxing match where slobber is flying out of people's mouths because the punches are landing so hard. It was like a Rocky movie without Philadelphia involved, because Philadelphia and their Eagles weren't good enough to be involved after the 49ers broke them. This was an epic fight in the fight capital of the world, in Las Vegas, not too far from the MGM Grand. In this epic fight, the 49ers came up on the short end of the decision. It took a full 15 rounds to get to that decision. So it was devastating for the 49ers, but so much of this finger pointing and so much of this, oh, Shanahan should have run there, he should have done that. You just don't get it. The people that are saying that just don't get it. They like drama. They want to make themselves feel better, or some kind of combination of both of those things. But the big picture is what commands the day here. Reasonable analysis looks at the big picture. This was a great game where both teams made plays, both teams made mistakes. Officiating here and there might have favored the 49ers at some spots. It might have favored the Chiefs at more. I don't know. There was some missed holding calls. Yeah, I get it. But then, very ironically, it was a holding call that extended the 49ers drive in overtime that put them in position to score that touchdown. So you had a little bit of that going both ways. All good. At the end of the day, it was an epic football game where one team had to lose and another team became a dynasty. And guess what? The 49ers are on the losing end. And that's life. Sometimes you have to play the bad card. They got the bad set of cards here. The 49ers got the bad hand. All these Las Vegas references. But they got the bad hand, and now they've got to bounce back from it. They've got to execute that steep climb back. Let's hear more from Kyle Shanahan.
I'd love to fix perception, because I would love to win one for what I know about football and stuff. And I know if I fix perception, that means I did everything I wanted to do, which isn't fix perception. It's win a damn Super Bowl. But I also know, like, when you say big games, like, we've got to win a bunch of big games to get to Super Bowls. We've won a lot of big games here. We've won a lot of big games to get into playoffs. The fact that we keep getting there shows you guys how much we've been win games or big games, and I think you guys are aware of that. But it's, these 2 Super Bowls have been tough, losing to Kansas City. But to think that if we win that means I can win a big game. No, that means our team won the Super Bowl. That's what I understand. You guys can have any narrative you want, but like the success or the failure, it comes down to one game. And I hope that I can be a part of a team that wins a game at the end of the year. But to say that the Niners can't win a big game, would be an extremely inaccurate statement.
So that's Kyle Shanahan talking about the fact that the 49ers have indeed won a lot of big games to get to this point. One thing about football is these aren't best of 7 series. So stuff doesn't like even out over the course of those 7 games. You have to have, like I said earlier, you have to have that combination of skill, and you also have to have luck to be able to get it done. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it, or there are no ifs, ands, or buts about it, if we want to use the proper verb there for the 49ers. I want to go get a burrito tonight, so I'm just texting my friend back. But when we talk about luck, and this is something that I mentioned earlier in the show, and we'll put it back up on the screen right now, this is the illustration of what's at play. The Chiefs are at the top of the lucky teams list in the postseason since 2023. This is objective data. The 49ers, they were extremely unlucky this year, and they were very unlucky this year. They're down to number 69 out of 80 teams. The Chiefs this year, the top out of 80 postseason teams since 2018. They didn't have it this year. So you just got to put yourself in position to get it next year. And maybe you won't get it next year. Maybe your heart's going to be ripped out again. That's why I bring you this right here. It's not going to be easy. Nobody said it would be easy. If you signed up for happiness all the time, for stability all the time, for, just roses all the time, in watching professional sports, you made a very, very bad investment. Because guess what? Only 1 out of 32 teams wins every single season. 1 out of 32. Your probability is not high. Even if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, over the long run, your probability is not high. You got 3 Super Bowls here over the past, 5 seasons? But there are seasons that you don't win too. They've had their hearts ripped out twice by Tampa Bay, then by the Cincinnati Bengals. Even the 49ers, when they were winning in the 80s, they had terrible losses through the 80s. So it's not easy. It's not meant to be easy. And it's something that you have to realize there are going to be more lows than are going to be highs. I will say that the 49ers are on a particularly difficult stretch right now, probably the most brutal one in franchise history because they've lost 2 Super Bowls and 2 NFC titles games in 5 years. But the only thing you can do here and the only thing you can do in life is keep on chopping wood. And I think that was the message as the 49ers left the locker room today. All right, I'm going to put up a 49ers Q&A. Let's get this up on the screen, 49ers Q&A, and I'm ready for your questions. And let's bring some good questions. I know the comment sections anywhere on the internet regarding the 49ers probably aren't the most productive places right now, given all the emotions. But that's what I'm here to change. I'm here to be your oasis for reasonable discussion about football, not emotional discussion about football. You can have emotional rants and discussions elsewhere. This isn't the channel for it. This is where we're actually going to get to the bottom of this bottom of stuff. I'm not going to address questions. Thanks for the comment, but I'm not going to address questions about if Wilkes leaves because that's speculation. We'll find out soon enough if Steve Wilkes is leaving. I don't know what Kyle Shanahan is thinking. Let's be honest. Kyle Shanahan has not watched the tape yet. So I don't think that he's firmly committed in either direction on Steve Wilkes. And I do think it's going to take watching the tape for him to make a move in either direction. Appreciate you, Essay. I came to the same measured and grounded conclusions you did yesterday morning about the loss. It reminded me that I'm a better, more intelligent fan because of you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Jim Everett's in here, our resident Rams fan. Hopefully he's not being a jerk to people. Did Gibson give an explanation regarding the long pass completion? I actually did not talk to Tashawn Gibson either on Sunday or yesterday. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you. Andy Reid was 61 when he won his first Super Bowl. Kyle Shanahan is 44. How long will it take? Well, Reid was 14 years further into his head coaching career when he won his. How can the 49ers keep Jawan Jennings? He was on pace for Super Bowl MVP and has always shown up at crucial times. He's a restricted free agent, so the 49ers have a good shot to keep Jawan Jennings. You put out either a first-round tender, a second-round tender, or a right of first refusal tag on him. The second-round tender might be the right way to go to pay Jawan Jennings between $4 and $5 million. And then if somebody else, he could negotiate with other teams. If somebody else offered him more, they'd have to pay him that contract for more money, and they'd have to send the 49ers a second-round pick. I think that the 49ers have a good chance to keep Jawan Jennings with a second-round tender. But we'll see what they do. I do agree with you. Is extremely important. His mentality is part of the heartbeat of the 49ers' way of playing offensively. He seems to catch everything thrown in his direction. He's a great route runner, great separator. Hell, maybe they even toss a first-round tender on him if they're afraid that his all-around skill set. I don't think they do this. I'm just speculating because he's so valuable to this team. But he's a number 3 wide receiver, and I think that you have to put some positional value on it too. I think a second-round tender is probably as high as the 49ers would go in this situation. Do I think there was some natural regression with Brock Purdy? I think that after the Ravens game, he wasn't quite as sharp as he had been because there were defensive adjustments over the course of the season, but I think he really counter adjusted, and we saw the counter adjustments over the second halves of the games in the playoffs, down the stretch against the Packers, the final drive, the entire second half against the Lions. And then we saw counter adjustments to some really novel defensive approaches, a ton of cover 0 and cover 1 from the Kansas City Chiefs. They're really aggressive. Brock Purdy made it work over the final 3 drives. Obviously, the 49ers didn't score the touchdowns that they wanted to at the end of the final 2, but they started moving the ball again. So, yes, there's always natural regression when somebody is playing lights out, top efficiency football like Brock Purdy was early on. But I think that he did counterattack from that regression. And that is mighty, mighty impressive on Brock Purdy's part. Bob Quiz. What do Coach Anthony Lynn and free safety Talanoa Hufanga have in common? People can drop your answers into the comment section. I honestly don't know. Also into the comment section, I'm just trying to figure out what exactly we're going to be doing this off season since we have some time now. What kind of content do you like the most? Do you like food? Do you like the little sandwich recommendations? Do you like these longer lives? Do you like the shorts? We got some good shorts up on YouTube. What kind of stuff do you like the most? / what kind of stuff do you want to see more of? And leave that thought in the comment section, either in the live comment section, but preferably in the comment section underneath this video when it's up there full time. Lessons with Lombardi. We don't have those yet, but that could be a good thing to add. I like that. Okay, cool. We have San Francisco history. Ed likes food recommendations. Mac likes disaster travel stories and longer lives. Do you guys like when Margot, my wife, comes aboard? Thumbs up or thumbs down for Margot? Because I think she might be interested in being a little bit more involved in the show moving forward. She had fun this season. She was at the NFC Championship game. She was in Las Vegas for the Super Bowl. Look at all these thumbs up. That's good. 49ers history stories on location. Oh, even in different cities. That's a good one. That's a good one. Make it a family affair. I like that as well. Are the 49ers looking at Hufanga and Brown as the starters at safety next year? I would think so. I really would, unless they think Gibson still has another year in the tank. But just from a cost efficiency standpoint, I don't think they're going to be in a good spot to be giving out too many one-year deals, especially a player like Gibson has really, I think, earned a little bit more than the veteran minimum. If you think that Jair Brown is ready for that job, and if you think Talanoa Hufanga is going to be back and healthy and ready to go, then that's probably the way that you do go. And hey, Gibson might just call it quits. He might just retire at this point. I don't know if he will, but he's 33 this year. He'd be playing at age 34 next season. It is a young man's sport. I'll take note of the franchise history lessons. That's stuff that I really like doing. I have my videos. I got my articles for The Athletic, and I'm very glad to hear that it's making stuff more enjoyable for all of you. Here's a good one. I'd like to see Mike or Taza on screen. So should we get Mike in a little box there at the bottom? We could have him producing the show, and then he could chime in whenever he has a thought. That's actually a really good idea. We're gonna have to see if Mike gets on board with it, though. The best place to get a burrito in San Francisco, it's where I'm going to get going in a few minutes, is Taqueria Cancun. You guys, longtime viewers probably know this, but Taqueria Cancun, 19th and Mission is the spot. Mike can be my AJ Hawk, just sitting there staring at the screen. You know, I was on the McAfee show again a few days ago, and AJ Hawk asked me 2 questions. And I think it's the most that AJ Hawk has ever talked in an interview segment. So I'm proud of that. I was on the Rich Eisen show today. That was fun. We have another recommendation, Taqueria Guadalajara in the Excelsior district in San Francisco. Noted. I've been there once a few years ago. I appreciate it. You can provide a payment plan if the athletic doesn't work out. That's good job security. I appreciate that. Dave could really go for a steak burrito. Mike is going to have a cigar during these shows now. We're going to have a little mini Pat McAfee show. Key dates in the offseason to watch. Now Mike is asking questions. If you guys have ideas, I know you like some of the Waymo videos. Key dates in the offseason to watch. Late February, NFL Combine. Mid-March, start of NFL free agency. Late April is going to be the NFL draft. May and June OTAs. In general, those are the key dates. I don't have the paper in front of me to give you the exact ones, but that is a good question. A good player to potentially restructure the contract for to clear up cap space. I see one of the questions down here would be Fred Warner. I think that his contract could be restructured and he's durable. Look, we got Jim Everett, resident Rams fan. When I'm in Visalia, I go to Hanford to a taco place called Cisneros. Okay. Yeah, maybe I make my way out that direction here at some point soon. How was the journey being a beat writer on a winning team this year? Well, I've been a beat writer on a winning team for a lot of years because the 49ers have been good, but it's exhilarating. It's exhausting. It's exhilarating. There's, I think, a lot of the good kind of drama with the 49ers. And you travel a lot. I like to give a lot of extra time to you through these videos so I can promote my articles and do all that good stuff. And as you could tell, I'm tired. As you can tell, I'm excited, though, for what's next. And I love all your ideas because I'm using it as a brainstorming session on here. The 49ers did have injury luck this past season. That was big. They had injury luck, but they did not have postseason fumble, drop, that kind of luck. Maybe the one play where they did have luck was the Brandon Ayuk catch, but the numbers say that in general, the 49ers did not have the type of luck that they needed to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. We have another pop quiz. Can you give me the answer to your first question, though? Go for broke. What jersey number has been worn by one player in the entire history of the 49ers? Hint, he's an NFL Hall of Famer. It's going to be an early 49er then. Is it Y.A. Tittle? I want to hear the answer to the first question because I already put one up and I haven't put up the answer. Go for broke. The first question was, what do Anthony Lynn and Talanoa Hufanga have in common? They both wore number 29 for the 49ers. Anthony Lynn in 95 and 96 and Hufanga 2021 to present. All right, thanks. Now, what's the second question's answer? Is Y.A. Tittle the answer? Is he the only 49er to have ever worn number 14? I think I might be right. I'm not sure if I'm right, but I think I might be right. No, I'm not. It's Steve Young. So there's only been one 49er in history to wear number 8. There's nobody ever won at number 8 before Steve Young, huh? That's crazy. That's a cool trivia question. Steve Young is the only 49er in history to have worn number 8. On that note, let's put Steve Young up on the screen. There he is. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. You guys are all awesome. Thank you for joining. We will talk to you very, very soon.